Welcome back to the secret world of human trafficking. I'm your host, David J. Story. I'm also the author of the Omega book series. Today we have a special guest. Let's go ahead and hear what they have to say. I want to welcome Abigail Smith. And Abigail, won't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and what you've been up to, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Okay, so I'm a survivor of human trafficking. I'm from South Africa. I'm also a mother of five, and currently I'm a podcaster. I have a podcast called God's Truth Podcast on YouTube. I'm also a survivor advocate, which means I I advocate for better laws in our country, and I also work with survivors where I can, volunteering my time to teach skills, upskill, and I haven't been as active in that because I've just recently relocated, but we'll be starting up a program again soon. But to go back and tell you where it all started and how it happened. So I recently, at the time that it happened, I recently had moved to Joburg and I was working in a media house. So I'm not from that region. And I was living in a house with colleagues of mine. We were all working at the radio station. And one day just to make a long story short, I got very upset with one of my colleagues. We had an altercation and I left the office. And I was very angry and I was walking what I thought was like a pretty straightforward road, but I walked until I pulled down and I found an area where I could sit. I was also on drugs at the time. I had been an addict, a drug addict on and off since the age of 19. I had tried many times to stop. And it was just one of those things. Whenever life got a bit difficult, I relapsed. So this was one of those times where I had just relapsed and I was now trying to unwind, if you will, in an area I don't know. It was like a grassy park with a little river, and I was just there by myself until it got dark, and not just dark but cold. When like the cold of the dark started setting in, I thought, oh my goodness, I better try to make my way back to the office. Getting back to the house where I stayed was going to be impossible. I wouldn't have known how to get there. I'd only been staying there for about 2 months. And Johannesburg's huge. And one of my colleagues used to drive us every time from the house to the office. So I thought, let me get back to my office. But everything looked different in the dark. And I just seriously got lost. Obviously I was high as well. So I was high and it was dark and I walked and I walked and I walked for maybe 22 hours. So in that time, I just kept finding myself walking past the same places. And it was like, no matter which direction I took walking, I couldn't find my way back to my office. Even asking directions, I couldn't get there. And eventually this guy stopped and he offered me a lift. And I recognized him immediately, although I didn't know him. And there is a whole story around that. But that was like the spiritual aspect that comes into play. But now, anyway, so he offers me a lift and I get in the car, not realizing that like this guy has no intention to take me where I need to go. He was like trying to figure out how he could get me to agree to go with him, basically. But so he was saying, listen, I was already on my way somewhere and I have to go because I'm kind of in a hurry and I'm late. So let me first go pick up my friend and afterwards I will drop you off. So I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit desperate. So I'm like, okay, fine. We get there where he has to pick someone up and this other girl gets into the back of the vehicle because I'm sitting in the passenger, gets in the back and she's talking a mile a minute, smoking. And like, she looked really weird. Like, I don't know. I was like, there's something wrong with this girl, but it's like, she didn't even acknowledge that I was in the car. It was very strange. And even as he pulled up, he just handed some money to the security guy, which was weird because those security guys get paid by the place where they're working. You don't have any reason to give them money. But anyway, so he gave this guy money without exchanging words, and this like weird chick gets in the back. And then he was now supposed to take me to my office. Then he stops and he picks up another girl. And I'm like, but that girl, I don't know, something about her just seriously freaked me out. So I jumped out of the car and I like raced away. I was like, no, no, no. I forgot to mention when I first got in the car, the first thing we did, immediately we exchanged phone numbers. So he took my phone number and I took his number. But so now I've escaped him. I ran away from him because I thought he lied to me because he didn't take me back to my office. He made a second stop that he never mentioned. And this girl looked crazy. Like she had a wig on, even though she was a white girl. and the wig looked crazy, and she had these like deep circles under her eyes, and I don't know, I just knew something was off here. And anyway, so now I'm lost again in Joburg, and several hours pass by, and then he phones me. And up until this point, because preserving the battery life of my phone, I every time I had tried to answer my phone, it wouldn't answer because I couldn't see what was happening because I'm outside. You know, when the sunlight is on your phone, you can't really see because you've dimmed. I used to set it on dim always. It was just a permanent setting to preserve. And this time when my phone rang and I answered, it would answer. It was so strange because all along, every time my phone rang, no matter how I tried to answer the phone, it wouldn't answer. And this time it answered, and it was him. And he said, "Listen, I'm so sorry. Let me come and I'll buy you something to eat and then I'll take you to your office." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Sounds like a plan because I don't have any other help here." So he comes, he takes me to Chicken Licken to get something to eat. But before he goes in, he rolls like a really fat joint. He lights it. He leaves it with me in the car and then he goes in. Now, I was already an addict. And so I was like, cool. And I smoked. When he came back, he's now very charming. We're eating, he's charming, I'm feeling relaxed, I've smoked a joint, and now he makes me like a very indecent proposal. He says, "How about you come with me to a guest house? I'll pay you 2,000 Rand for the night." I mean, at this point, I'm like thoroughly charmed. He's good looking, he's been fun. I mean, like, I would probably have gone with him for free, you know? But I was like, okay, sounds good to me. You're gonna pay me and I'm gonna enjoy the time with you. But the moment we got there, it wasn't like we were gonna have fun. He took my ID, he took my phone, and now he started verbally threatening me like for hours. It just went on and on and on. And when people ask me like, what did he say? Like, I only remember one of the threats. I think like I just blocked it out. I don't really remember what he said, but I just remember that he was seriously instilling fear in me. And one of the things he said was that he was gonna call all his like Nigerian friends and they were gonna come and rape me. And I mean, that's a pretty like serious threat. Like, and then he raped me. And the next morning, it was like acting like nothing happened. And I was really mad at him and he apologized, which was nice, except it wasn't nice because now I'm not allowed to leave. And he moved me from that room to another room. And over the course of the next few days, he had arranged that a photographer would take photos of me. He had taken me to some shop where he was known and where I had to choose like lingerie. And the most modest thing in that whole shop that I could find was like a schoolgirl outfit. So because it covered, so I chose that. And even that in itself was pretty sick. I mean, if you think about it, you know that people are
Yeah.
fantasizing about schoolgirls. It's just disgusting. But anyway, so I put on he issued me with a work phone. It was like a phone that can only receive calls. I can't even like go on the internet or anything. It doesn't even have color. It's like those old phones that you would like SM. It could only receive calls because if you don't put airtime on, you can't make any calls. So the moment the advert went online, the moment the advert went up, my phone rang and it never stopped ringing. It just rang the whole day. And I would just put it on silent because I didn't want to hear it ringing because there was no way I was going to do this thing. Like he was pushy, but he wasn't abusively pushy in some way. Like he would like try to coerce me and coax me and guilt trip me into doing it. And I wasn't gonna do it. I mean, I couldn't ever
Mm.
imagine. And then at the same time, he's playing my boyfriend, which means we're doing all the things together. And I'm trying to like comprehend the situation that I'm in. I realize I'm in a very terrible situation. And he never mentions these two other girls again, right? And I think a few weeks pass and I haven't yet seen any clients. And every day he's saying, listen, yeah, guest house costs money, food costs money, drugs cost money. And initially I didn't want the drugs. I didn't touch it for a long time. And then one day he left the drugs and he left and he just left me there alone with the drugs. And I tried to escape. I left the guest house. And when I left, I think that the people that work at the guest house called him because like within minutes he came and he picked me up. He was able to find me. And I mean, and I don't even know. So eventually what happens is I keep refusing to work. He even sends people like that are staying over at the guest house, people that he knows. They come and they knock on the door and they say, "Hey, I hear you working." And I say, "No, I'm not working. Like, I'm not." And then he comes and I say, "No, no one called," or whatever. And I'm like deleting the call log and lying to him as well because I'm not going to do it. And then he takes me to the house, eventually, the house where the other girls are being kept. And it was really strange because the moment I walked in, it's like I recognized everything. And again, this is the spiritual aspect part. But so I walked in and I kind of felt at home in some way just because I recognized the girls and the house and the setting and everything. I recognized it all. It felt familiar to me. And now for about 2 weeks, I was still like fighting it really hard and I wasn't gonna do it. But they have such a clever system in place and it is a system. It's a numbering system. So your girlfriend number one, girlfriend number two, girlfriend number three. And if you when you wake up in the morning, they give you a tiny little bit of drugs, just a little bit to wake you up. That's if you even slept at all. Most of the times you don't even sleep. And every time you see a client, they reward you with a gram of whatever your drug of choice is, usually crystal or what did the other girl, crack cocaine, things like that. I never went that way. I was like, I don't want to retard myself. But anyway, so now if you don't see clients, you don't get drugs. And it's not like there's really a lot of food in the house or anything. So it's just a very uncomfortable. And now I'm watching how the girls are working. They see clients, they go in, and the system is like this. You see a client, the client arrives, they give you money, you take that money, that client doesn't know that there's anyone else in the house except for maybe one other prostitute if one of us want to show ourselves or if we're busy in the kitchen or something and they walk past or whatever. But generally, the client thinks they're alone in the house with you. You go into the room with them, you take the money, you go out of the room into the next room where there's usually the Nigerian is there, and you hand the money to the Nigerian or to the one that's watching the door, because it was him and his right hand man. The right hand man was the one that allocated the drugs, that collected the money, made sure the door was locked at all times. He used to only unlock it for you if clients were coming in and then immediately lock it again. And then unlock when it's time for the client to leave. But the client will never see the Nigerian, never know that there's other people in the house. So everyone is like in the rooms, either on this side or wherever in the house, depending on where you are, and they are being very quiet and you're doing whatever your business and then you take the clients out. And I'm watching this setup and I beg him. I say, listen, I can't do this. I'm not doing this. And I begged him, like, I don't believe in begging. Not because I'm proud or anything, just it's not proper. We don't beg. That's not us. And I begged him. I said, please, like, let me go. And he refused. He wouldn't let me go. So I thought to myself, I was like, okay, you have no idea, but you took the wrong girl, right? And I decided then and there,
Mhm.
okay, fine. I'm gonna earn your trust. And when I find the weakness in you trusting me is when I'm gonna escape. And you're gonna regret the day that you took me. And so now I just do a full 180. Okay, I see the clients, I'm acting the part. I'm like literally saying, I love my job. Isn't the best job in the world. And I'm like, I really just play this character. I'm acting the character. And whenever clients come to see, I make it as uncomfortable as possible for those that are quietly hiding in the rooms next door. I'm loud. I'm obnoxious. I'm just having the most fun that I can in this terrible situation, knowing that I am moving with a strategy. What I saw were girls beat up, girls abused, the way that we were treated like dogs, like we were not even people. There were times where I can't even tell you. And every time they're so clever because they want you to not get on with each other. It has to be a competition. It has to be fighting. That's why girlfriend number one gets girlfriend number one perks. Then there's girlfriend number two and girlfriend number three. You're girlfriend number three if you messed up. If you mess up, you're going into the number three bedroom, which is a junk room, looks terrible. You don't get to have any fun time. You don't get to go shopping. And if you go shopping, you're not going by yourself. You're going with the Nigerian. So it's like, It's just a really terrible situation. We're not allowed to leave. You're dependent on the drugs. Sometimes they can just leave. The main oak, he can just leave and not buy food for the whole week. And you can't leave. You're not allowed to leave. There's no food in the house. Maybe sometimes they run out of drugs and they don't top up the drugs. Now we're all like here trying to kill each other. But every time, what I noticed, the theme or the pattern, sorry, is that every time any two girls get on for half a day or a day or more, they run away together. Every time. So this was Karen and Shanae. Every time they would become friends and then they would run away together. And then they would come back and then they get beat up. And it's just like, and it was this horrible cycle. Why? Because you have nowhere to go and you can't go to the police because the police are your clients. And you know that, like, every time you go through a roadblock, you just see money exchanged, words don't get exchanged. They all know each other already. You don't know who knows who. You don't know who's involved. You don't know you don't know where is safe. In fact, nowhere is safe to report. From your knowledge in that situation, I now know that there's an organization called A21. They run a hotline. They're not the police, but they work with the police, etc., etc. But at the time, I had no idea that there was help anywhere. I didn't know that even any one person would be able to assist me in any capacity. And I didn't expect help, to be honest, from anyone. Eventually, what happened was I made an escape and I got away. I just saw an opportunity. No one was looking at me. So I jumped over the wall. I found a way to get to like some gate. It's got a lot of barbed wire, but there happened to be a part where there was no barbed wire and I could squeeze through there because actually it's a gated community. There are security at the boom gates and they're on the payroll as well. So it's not like you can, even if you can get out of the house, you can't get out of the area. So it's like there's so many roadblocks to stop you from getting out and so many people that you need to get through to try to get out and get out to where? To nowhere. There's nowhere you can go that you know of. Anyway, so I escaped that night. And by 7 o'clock the next morning, this is probably the most shocking part of my testimony. I phoned them and I said, listen here, I am so sorry that I ran away. Please come fetch me. And they fetch me back in the house. And I'm like, what just happened? And I realized, not for the first time, that this is a spiritual problem as well. I'm not just physically trapped. I am spiritually trapped. And just to give a little bit of context, I recognized him when I saw him, and I recognized the girls in the house when I came in there because I actually dreamt everything 3 years before it happened. I had repetitive dreams, many, many repetitive dreams of these exact same faces, these girls and this guy, specifically these people. I kept seeing them in my dreams. I knew that we were fighting all the time. In my dreams, we were fighting all the time. And I didn't understand, who are these people that I don't know and why do they keep showing up in my dreams? But while I was in this situation, and when I remembered, oh, it's because of the dreams that I'm recognizing, I felt in myself that this was part of my journey. I was always going to go through this. So I just need to embrace going through it so that I can get to the other side of this, however that may look. But now I had made an escape and I'm back, and I really felt that the dreams had all played out. There was nothing left anymore. Because what would happen eventually was, like, I would wake up in the morning and I would see things and I'll be like, oh, okay, this is that day. All right. Because I remember it from the dream. And when there were no more dreams, I knew my time was up, but yet I escaped and now I'm back. So what now? So a few days after I had escaped, I became girlfriend number 2. So because I ran away, I was girlfriend number 3 because you're the one that messed up. So now you're in the dog box. And then very soon after I had messed up, one of the other girls also messed up. So now she's number 3 and I'm number 2. And I really felt like the middle child, the forgotten one for a minute there in time. And I was in my room, minding my own business, not taking any calls. And I just began to sing songs of praise to the Lord Jesus. I began to sing any song I could remember from childhood or from previous, whatever I could remember. Good, Good Father from Chris Tomlin, This Little Light of Mine, anything and everything I could remember. And I just kept singing and singing. And what happened was, so the Nigerian would come in And he would like look at me, and then it's like he was silenced. Normally he'd be like, "Why aren't you working? Where are your clients?" Da 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 da. That intimidation forced you to do what you're supposed to be doing, but there was none of that. He would look at me and not say anything. And this kept happening hour after hour. I was singing and singing only songs of praise, nothing else. And I expected a response from God. I don't know. I was high. I was still using, but something in me knew that I need Jesus. That is how I'm going to get out of this. I did not know that Jesus would come, but he did. He came into that brothel. Let me explain. There came a moment where I felt like the atmosphere had shifted and I knew something was up, but I didn't know what. It was so silent. I couldn't hear anything in the house. But I didn't want to be seen because now they're going to make you work. But I thought so I just carefully peeked out the door and I don't see anyone. I think, okay, let me go to girlfriend number three's room. Just, out of the way and check. No one is there. Okay, I go to girlfriend number one room. There's no one there. I'm like, okay, this is weird. I go into the lounge. There is no one in the whole house. There's no one on the whole property. It's never happened. At this point, I'd been there for almost 6 months. This is an impossible. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on the property at all times outside of myself, right? So we were 7 generally. Okay. And in the place of the no people, I don't, I don't know what's a good way to say it. There was this thick cloud. It's like as if, when people vape and they make those clouds of smoke. So it's like the whole room was just full of this cloud. And I like even pushed my fingers through it like this. I was like, and then I knew God is here. And I just knew it somehow in my know. And now I start complaining to God. I'm like, God, why is my life like this? Why is this situation? Why is this happening to me? Woe is me, woe is me. I can't even remember, but I was just like, nah, 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 complaining. And then I just felt God say to me, don't eat the meat. And I thought something to do with witchcraft or whatever. But I later realized because Paul speaks about someone of weak faith doesn't eat meat. Someone of strong faith eats meat. So it was really a call to obedience because I and myself in all the years that I had lived, that I had tried, I was never able to even be a little bit obedient to anyone in any circumstance. I was always a troublemaker through and through. So this was my first instruction that began a work of obedience in me to be obedient to God. So he didn't say, run away, there's no one here. He said, don't eat the meat. So, okay. 3 weeks later, I managed to, after this, because I came back from running away, now they actually trusted me. They trusted me so much that they allowed me to have a smartphone. I really motivated for it. I said, okay, every single day I've had to see, early on, I realized what is the least amount of clients I can see a day and keep them happy. And I was pretty consistent with this. I used to see between 4 and 6 people every single day. That was my usual. Karen, she was a machine. She could even do more than one all-nighter in one night. I don't know. She was really good at the job, The other girl, I didn't know, but she was pregnant and I didn't know why she was getting so much leniency. I later found out that she was pregnant. So she would sometimes just sleep the whole day, whole night and be like, why isn't she being made to, you get petty in the situation. Like what about, why are you messing with, go bother her. Why are you bothering me? I already saw my 3 or 4 clients or whatever, but anyway. So I said to them, listen, if I had a smartphone, I could access WhatsApp, I would be able to communicate with clients and bring more money in, So it was like my upsell pitch. And they were like, okay, fine. So they allowed me to buy a smartphone. We weren't allowed to keep any of the money. So there was a thing where they said, okay, you can make extra money doing extras for clients that is not required from them. So they require you to sleep with your client if that's what the client wants, nothing else. And you must wear a condom. Those were the only rules. You have sex with the client and you use a condom, right? Anything else that the client wanted, we were allowed to do it, provided, and we charge extras. So then they pay us that extra money, and that extra money, we're allowed to use it to buy drugs from our pimp. We're not allowed to save the money. We're not allowed to keep the money. We're not allowed to use the money for anything else. It must go straight to the pimp still for drugs. And they sell us drugs, extra drugs with that money. So this was the thing. So I said, okay, let me make some extras money and then I buy the phone. And they agreed to the whole thing. With the phone, I began to plot my escape. I began to look for any opportunity with any client that could assist me. Because now I couldn't remember where was that street that I found the first time. It was like a lucky shot. I didn't know the area. I needed someone who could drive me out. So I found this client. This client was a regular client. He helped me on called me out for call outs. So there's all different services. Now the call outs when you go see them where they are. Anyway, so I'd been on call outs with this client before. And anyway, so I asked him to come and pick me up. And he said, okay, yes, he's going to help. And you know what? That night, it was so supernatural because the guy that was guarding the door was passed out drunk, which never happened. It's like it's not allowed. I mean, he has one job is to guard the door. And it was unlocked. So he was passed out, the door was unlocked. The other girl, one of the girls were going to escape with me, but she couldn't. She decided at the last minute she wasn't going to escape with me. She changed her mind at the last minute. And I can't tell you how many times I have taken a moment to be grateful for her decision to stay behind, rather, because I don't believe I'd be sitting here today if she went with me. Because when I was in the car with this client, I immediately began to realize that I was in another dangerous situation. This client was now trying to kidnap me for the same purpose. He was so willing to help me, not because he wanted to help me, but because he has his own brothel of girls. And he started
Wow.
divulging stuff while we were in the car. And then I realized, and I had to think quick. So I said to him, I have an e-wallet I need to draw. That's like a cardless service where anyone can send you money and they just give you a PIN code and you go to an ATM and you can draw the money with a PIN code. So I said, I have this e-wallet I need to draw and it's like $800. These oaks are so flippin' greedy. $800 is not even a lot. Anyway, so he stops and I get
Hmm.
out, and the moment I get out of, and that moment I also realized how dangerous it was. The way that I came with this idea in the nick of time, because he was about to take me into one of the most dangerous townships in Johannesburg. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so I get out the car and I start making a huge scene so that everyone's eyes can be on me. It's almost 7 a.m. in the morning, and at that moment, another car comes driving by, and it's a family, a mother, a father, and a sister and a brother. I didn't ask. I jump in their car and I close the door and I say, please, 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 just get me anywhere away from here. Wherever you're going, take me with you, just some of the way. So they're like, fine. They don't know me. I look like a complete crazy. So they just took me a little ways away, and I got out the car and they left. And now I'm out. I was out of that situation, but I was not out of danger. So there was a lot that still took place now. So I don't know, to tell the rest of the next part of the story is like it's another 40 minutes just to get through like because I'm still in danger, but I'm not really saved yet. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I don't know if you have questions.
Yeah. How much money a day did you average bringing in?
I don't know per day, but I did do the math on a monthly, and I think it was between 60 and 90K a month. And I was not a top earner. I was like nowhere near one of the top earners. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of money to be made
Oh yeah.
by the traffickers.
Oh yeah.
How much did you have to pay them for the drugs of the money that you brought in?
So we what they do is in the morning, if you were sleeping, but even if you weren't sleeping, in the morning they come and they give you like a quarter gram. And that's just a gift for you to wake up.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you get very like you don't want to do anything, you don't want to get out of bed, you don't put your makeup on, you don't want to clean, you don't do anything. But it's just to get you going. So they give you a tiny little bit, you take it and you get going. Then once you see a client, they reward you with a gram. So every client you see, they give you a gram. So you don't have to buy drugs. But these girls, for me personally, I got way more drugs than what I could consume. I always ended up sharing more with them because I didn't have a death wish. I didn't even want to be on the
Yeah.
drugs. I was just taking to cope, you know? And I mean, I was already an addict, but I really didn't want to be an addict. At that point, I already didn't want it anymore. I was trying to get out of it. And yeah, so it wasn't really an issue. Buying drugs was not something I really needed to do. I did it sometimes more because I was always sharing than because I needed it. Yeah. The other girls, the girl that was on crack cocaine, it's like you smoke it, but that stuff, it's very expensive. The high doesn't last long. That stuff, you can smoke thousands and thousands and thousands of rands in a night easily. So I wasn't on that drug. Yeah.
One thing I'm sure a lot of people want to know is whenever you were able to go out alone shopping or whatever, why did you come back?
There was no going out alone shopping. No, when we went out shopping, it was with the Nigerian. So he is going shopping, and we
Okay.
are allowed to tag along and be with him. Not There was never an alone moment. That thing didn't exist. In the house, there was the right hand man, and there was another guy who was like another set of eyes. The right hand man also had a girl that was trapped, but she was like a bit of an older woman. So we were four girls in the house. And in the time that I was there was another one or two girls that they tried to bring in. And there was one at a guest house that he was busy grooming the way he had me in the beginning. It seems to
Hmm.
be the system that he employs. And the girls that are in the house, especially the jealous in love girlfriends, don't want, it's like this whole, I don't know, fantasy world that they develop. I don't know if it's to cope or what, where they actually think that the pimp is their boyfriend, and they actually think they're fighting over the man that they love, and this is actually how their life is. Like they just get so brainwashed in that. I mean, I wasn't in it for that long. I never fell for it. I didn't submit myself in my heart, even though I was playing a character. When I decided, okay, I'm going to turn it around, I played a character, but these girls were not playing a character. They think that this is their life. And it's very sad. It's like really, really sad to see that, yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know. Once the girls have been in it for a certain period of time, you know, it, to get out and to heal and to begin to live a normal life, it's not impossible, but it's extremely rare and difficult.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up. How was it like, and what got you into the drugs?
Oh, wow. Okay, so growing up was very difficult for me. Life was very difficult. My real mom and my dad divorced when I was very small still, and I was raised by my stepmom from the age of 2, and she was extremely verbally and physically abusive, and later on more just verbally. But I personally would rather take a smack than be shouted at all day. Like, just smack me and go, like that would be way better. But instead I had
Yes,
to
it would. Yeah.
endure hours and hours. Like, if I say she would shout at me for 6 hours a day, like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, that was my childhood. My childhood was shut up and say yes, Kim, nod, don't cry, you know, and just take it. My real mom committed suicide when I was 3 years old. So there was no hope
Mm.
of someone
Wow.
rescuing me out of that situation. I had to wait it out. And I still remember adults in our family saying to me, just wait until you're 18. You wait through that. It's like the worst thing in the world to wait through abuse.
Hmm.
Like,
Oh,
nobody
I'm
want
sure. I'm sure.
get me into a different family or get me into foster care or like make a plan. But nobody was willing to help me to that extent out of, I think, loyalty to my dad. And you know what? Bless his soul, he did not know the extent of the abuse. I don't think he understood that I was being abused at all. And there was an age that came where we told him, but unless you're in it, you can't really understand it. And ultimately, I do believe that my dad did what he thought was the best thing he could do to protect me, you know, and to a large extent, sometimes like you can have that attitude of rather the devil you know than the devil you don't kind of thing.
Hmm.
And at least like I was spared other kinds of abuse, I would say, but it's the one that I endured was really, really hard. When I was 18 years old, I was now legal to move out, and I did. As soon as I realized, wait, I can move out, I moved out. And because I was so protected, I was so sheltered and abused that I actually wasn't functional at all. Like I didn't know how to just be a normal human. And I experienced like this extreme freedom for the first time ever. So I just did what I saw everyone else doing, partying. But other people used to party on weekends. Weekends were not enough for me. I wanted to party Monday to Sunday because freedom. And I was also very promiscuous from an early age because which is another reason why my dad needed to keep me at home. So I don't blame him in that sense because the last thing you want is your young underdeveloped daughter being promiscuous, even as a grown up,
Mhm.
they people didn't believe that I was a grown. I looked really, really young for most of my young adult life as well. I still looked like a teenager all the way up until 27. So yeah, it was quite a dangerous thing to be promiscuous. But it wasn't like it was something that I just wanted. I actually had demonic oppression. When I was 2 years old, my brother and I stumbled upon porn, and a demon actually entered me. I had demonic oppression up until the age of 30, where it was like intrusive images and thoughts that I thought was myself, that was actually not even me, of sexual images and things. It was an onslaught. You can't control it. And it's when I got delivered from that demon and I experienced clarity of mind, I realized for the first time that actually it wasn't me all along. I never knew. I thought I was just this pervert. And yeah, anyway, so when I was 19 years old, I had been living out out of my parent. I've been living on my own for about 6 months at this point. I got a job in a fine dining restaurant and I worked really hard. So yes, I used to like to party, but I used to work really hard as a waitress. I used to love serving people. I used to love the whole thing. And I had never taken drugs. Although I loved drinking alcohol when I was partying, not the rest of the time, but I didn't believe in taking drugs. That wasn't for me. I didn't want any part of that. And one night when I was at work, my boss, the owner of the restaurant, he called me to the bathroom and he made a line on the counter and he told me to take it. He was standing by the door and I'm standing inside and he's saying, take the line. And I'm like, no, like that's not for me. And the more I'm saying no, the more he's saying, just take it. And it was like this little line of cocaine. And I was a phenomenal waitress. I had 6 tables, some of them seat even up to 6 or 8 people that I was doing by myself on in the smoking section, which is the furthest away from the kitchen and the bar and all that. So it's the hardest and most demanding section. And I was running it by myself. And yeah, he is stealing half an hour of my time trying to make me take a line and I'm fighting and he's saying take it and I'm fighting. And then I said, man, kind of just like to get him off my back. I took the line and I said, okay, I don't feel any different. He said, don't worry, you will. That night, when I got home, I couldn't sleep. I felt like a god. I felt euphoria. I forgot all whatever may have been subconsciously bothering me or paining me anywhere. There was no hurt, there was no pain. It was all just the most amazing feeling you could ever imagine and more energy, so much energy. I walked like 4 kilometers or something ridiculous in the main road, like which is like a four lane road, just walking because I felt so good. Like, let me just go walk. And yeah, so that was the beginning of the downward spiral for me because the moment that feeling wore off, I needed that feeling again. Yeah. And I needed it.
I'm sure. Those drugs take hold of you.
Yeah.
What did you do after you escaped and then all the way up to where you are today?
It's a long story. Okay. But
Yeah, go
let me
ahead.
give you, let me try to give you as short a version of that as I can.
Okay.
I phoned a
Okay.
police officer that I knew or that I had met when I was working at the media house. I had to write an article about him, and at the end of the article, I had to put in his phone number. So I remembered his number suddenly. It's not like I thought on it the whole time I was there, but now that I had escaped and needed to phone someone, I phoned him. And immediately they went and made arrests. I told them where the drugs were. I told them I had been held against my will for 6 months. I told them everything that I could, but I was not going to go into a police station and I was not going to go be present with the arrest and whatever. I was trying to get as far away as fast as I can to be out of danger.
Well, how did you know that you could how did you know you could trust that police officer? Was he not a client of yours or
So he was not a client. I met him at the radio station while I was working at the radio station, which is the media house. So he had a half an hour slot on the radio every Tuesday morning as part of like a community outreach kind of thing. And part of my job was to write articles about whoever appeared on the radio for the website. So I just, like, he was the only person I knew that was a police officer. I didn't know anyone else. And I thought I would rather phone someone I know than try to walk into a police station and you don't know if any of these people are working with or for or are on the payroll of the pimp, because many of them could be.
Mhm.
You don't know where they're stationed. You don't know. All I know is that I saw many interactions of money being exchanged between pimp and police. So all I knew was I can't trust police, but let me try this. And so they made arrests, and it turned out in the long run that I could not trust him, because now that they had made arrests, I said, listen, can I please go fetch my things? I mean, I got nothing. I ran away with nothing. So the few things that I had there, which wasn't a lot, but there's a few things there, at least maybe some clothes, some cosmetics, whatever, shoes. When I ran away without shoes on, so I had nothing. And yeah, so he said, yes, you can come, but I was already quite a distance away from Joburg. So I didn't want to make the mission there unnecessary. So I don't know, I just had an unction to call him before I go. And I called and he said, don't come. Don't come. I'm on my way to Cape Town. I had an emergency. I'm not there. I'm not going to be able to help you. Don't go to the house where your things were because it was owned by mafia, which is a complete lie. Like, it was such a lie. And whatever excuses. And thereafter, he blocked me. And anytime I tried to call him from a different number, he would block that number. So he was acting very suspect. Then
Hmm.
there was a client that was like always at the house. He was practically he was the only client that was aware of the background ongoings because of the amount of drugs that he bought, and because he would hire us, but he would never actually sleep with us because he had so much drugs in his system he could never do anything. So he just wanted company, basically. And he used to spend like 40K over a weekend, like ridiculous amounts of money. And anyway, so
Wow.
I I got hold of him and I pretended like I didn't know that they had been arrested. I pretended like I had run away and I didn't. So I was playing dumb. And just to hear like if there was any news, just to kind of get a different viewpoint. And then he said to me that he was busy making money loose to bail them out. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then I blocked him and I was like, okay, that's it. So now I knew why the police was acting dodgy was because he had promised a bribe. And within a week, they had all been released from the prison or from the holding cell or wherever they were. And they had arrested the girls as well, which for me was extremely strange. Like, why are you arresting victims? These girls are being held against their will, but they're being arrested like prostitutes. And so this is another arena that needs to be dealt with. And they obviously are not going to say that were trafficked because they can't trust you. Imagine
Right.
if they confessed that they had been, and then the bribe happened, they were gonna be released to their and I've heard so many stories where the police release the trafficked victim to the pimp again. They arrest them, they treat them like criminals, and then they release them to their pimps. And I'm just like, you're facilitating trafficking. You're supposed to be fighting the crime. You're not, so there's a lot of that going on in our country, a lot. And I know it's not only here. But anyway, so then they started looking for me on the street and they were going around showing my photo to people like, hey, have you seen this girl? And eventually, if I tell you that the Lord and the Holy Spirit was guiding my steps in real time. You can go this direction, you can go that direction, don't talk to this person, get away from here. Literally being the loudest voice, directing me, telling me where to go, who to speak to, who not to speak to, etc., saved my life countless times during this time of danger. I was on the
Wow.
street for several months. Yeah, I was on the street for several months. Eventually, Hawks were able to. Someone took me to the Department of Social Development, where the Hawks took on the case. And the Hawks are the ones that deal with human trafficking in South Africa. They are like South Africa's CIA, except for the vast majority of them, intellect and fitness are not criteria. So I don't really, but let's leave that one for now. And I told them everything. I was so ready. I was like, I'm about to take this on. All the leads are hot. I'll tell you who the corrupt police is. I'll tell you where they are. I'll tell you, like, I can tell you everything. I can even give you a bonus guy, the guy that I escaped the one who was helping me that I had to escape. I'll give you a bonus case because he's got girls as well, and all of that just died because these guys did not investigate. But apart from the fact that they weren't investigating for what I thought was fast enough, like they were not even when I told them everything. And when I saw them again and I asked them, so have you spoken to this? And it's a captain. Have you spoken to this police captain? They were like, who? So they weren't even listening when I told them my story. They didn't even receive the information that I gave them to even know who I'm talking about. I can't be more disappointed in our justice system as a whole. But anyway, so they took me to a safe house, and while I was at the safe house, again with the dreams, God gave me a dream 3 days in a row. And at the first time I had the dream, I didn't think anything of it. The second day I had the exact same dream. I was like, huh, did I just have the same dream? The third day I was like, oh my gosh, God is speaking to me. And the dream was literally God telling me I need to go. I need to go. So I was like, okay, again, I have nothing. I jumped over the wall but Holy Spirit was telling me to take the N1 to Cape Town. So I had the guidance of God telling me where to go. And at the time, I really thought that it was because there was some danger that I was running away from. But in hindsight, I realized that it was because God was leading me to the only place in South Africa that was equipped to help me to heal and provide the holistic care that I needed to heal, to become restored. And but at the time I didn't. So when I got to Cape Town, I made contact with the Hawks, and for 2 years it was like pulling teeth. They refuse to investigate. They say yes, 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 but they don't do anything. Eventually, I escalated a complaint to the Minister of Police. At the time was Becky Cele, and he received my complaint and acted on it. I was, to be honest, I'm a little bit shocked because there was something actually happened. They filtered down my complaints all through the ranks, so everyone knows who I am, from the highest authority all the way down, until they were able to take my case and transfer it to another hawk. And that hawk happened to be one of the most passionate, crime fighting, anti trafficking hawks I've ever met. And unfortunately, he later on died of natural causes, but not before he made a couple of arrests. Some 4 years later, from the time that I ran away to the time the arrests were made. For him, it was 2 years into investigating. So 4 arrests were made. One of them I consider a bonus arrest, and one of the guys that needed to be arrested were not arrested. And definitely the captain of the police that had a role in with the corruption area, he's still a captain there, and goodness knows how much damage he's doing in the police force and amongst obviously organized crime syndicates, because he's taking money to let them continue to do what they're doing. So I am happy on one end and very, very unhappy on the other end. So I'm not going to just accept the little win that I have. I'm literally currently testifying in court against my perpetrators and all the accomplices that I have accused. And yeah, so I'm basically going to be cross-examined in a couple of weeks, and I'm not allowed to talk about the contents of the case too much. But what I spoke about is not really content of the case, I think. I hope. And yeah, I'm hopeful. Yeah, because it's not over yet. So, but basically at the moment, it's not me against the perpetrators. It's now the state against the perpetrators, and I'm a state witness. So that's what it became. which is really good. Only I feel that there's a lot of arenas that are not being touched, not being tackled, and the South African Police Administration leaves way too much to be desired, especially even the courts. The whole administration is just there's so much room for improvement, if I can say it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true anywhere, anywhere. So the the pimps that took you, were they ever arrested and the girls, were they ever freed or are they still
So
operating?
the pimps are the perpetrators that I'm talking about. Those are the guys that were arrested. So the main guy that took me,
Okay, good.
and when I escaped, I actually escaped pregnant with his child. So I have my daughter with me. She's 6 years old now. And so she is the fruit of this experience that I went through. And then there was a new right hand man at the time of the arrest. The old right hand man is living some good life somewhere in South Africa. And this other young guy, young Nigerian who can hardly even speak English, got a shame, and he's so young. And I'm just like, for me, I'm grateful that they are arrested, because imagine all the years that they still have ahead of themselves to make a career as a wealthy pimp. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are so
Mm,
young. The guy that captured me was not much older than me, maybe 3 years older than me, 4 years older than me. Like, he could carry on with this for like 50 years. Do you know how many girls' lives you can destroy in 50 years of pimping? Anyway, so, and when the arrests were made, one of the girls did get rescued. And the arresting officer, Don Barath, God bless his soul and God rest his soul, he raised money for her to be put into a really good long-term rehab program. But the moment he died, she RHT'd, because it was basically like this. You can either be a witness in the case or you can be a perp in the case. Because one way or another, you're in
mhm,
this case. You're gonna tell the truth or you're gonna be counted a criminal because you were in this house. If you're saying you weren't trafficked, then you're a criminal in this case. So now that he passed, that threat wasn't over her anymore, and now she's testifying for them, forgetting that she did write an initial statement, and that initial statement corroborated a lot of my story. I've never spoken to her again. So and they were very careful to make sure that we never communicated, so that it can never be said that we hushed the story together, right? And a lot of the details are exactly the same, what I said, because she was truthful initially, grateful to be rescued. Later on, because the thing is, it's more than just getting out of a trafficking situation. Drug addicts, okay? She was an extremely, extremely psychotic drug addict that she taught me how to inject. She used to consume more drugs than what a human body should be able to survive, and what I saw, and she didn't want to stop taking drugs. Maybe she didn't want to be in the situation anymore, but she didn't want to stop taking drugs. Now she's forced into a rehab, right? Which is obviously the right and good thing for her. But she wanted to relapse. It's very difficult. And even for a normal person coming off drugs that was never trafficked, you find that they will run away and use drugs and relapse and go to rehab again and relapse. And it's a part of the healing journey to go through the cycles. Sometimes you need to do more research and realize, okay, wait, this really isn't for me, but sometimes people relapse 10 or 12 times. So now in her relapse, she also now went the other way because, she's also madly in love with her pimp. So it's like, it's a really, really bad situation. And the other girl, she got out of that situation straight into another one. She, like, I don't know if she told me that she, like, begged to be sold to another pimp, because to her, she can't see herself outside of that life. That is her life. She's a prostitute. She takes drugs, and that's her life. There is no life to be had. She's not going to go get married and become a housewife or be a career woman. It's never going to happen for her. She can't see it. There is no sense of self-worth in any of these two women. And the thing is, like, people can look at me and they say, oh, but you're so strong, and I don't want people to do that, because the thing is, I could easily have been one of those girls. You do not know how long they were trapped in that situation. The longer you are in it, the more difficult it is to see yourself out of it, the more hurt, the more you've been broken, the more you've been destroyed in your, not only in your body, but your soul is being wounded every single day. And to recover from that is so extremely difficult. I only seem strong and all that because I wasn't in it that long. When I arrived, Karen had been saying that she had been there for 2 years already. Just before I escaped, she was still saying that she had been there for 2 years. She had no concept of time. She didn't know how long she was there. And by the time she got rescued, she had been there a total of 7 years. So
Wow.
seven, and there is this school of thought that I've heard coming from the same girls. They told me, right, at the time that I was there. And this is the example. So there was another girl that had worked for the pimp before, and she had worked for him for 7 years. After 7 years of working for your pimp, you are unusable to him. He cannot use you anymore. You become like they cannot handle you anymore. They cannot, like, you become so broken that you can't just go and do your job and come back. It's not like earlier days. You become something different that they can't even, they're like, now you have to go work for yourself. And then what do? You go on, you work for yourself. Do you see a lot of old prostitutes working for themselves? No. What happens to these women? They die. What happens to them? Where are they? Do you
Yeah,
see them? I don't see them.
I've heard other stories from survivors and people saying that 7 years is about the maximum.
Yeah, 7 years. 7 years. So now Karen had already been in and through it for 7 years. From the time I met her, how long she said she'd been there, if it had in fact been 2 years, up until the time that she got, and the other girl, what's her name? Shanae, she had also been there for a really long time. She had been at another pimp and then was sold to Kelly, and now from to the other. So it's a never ending cycle. For some women will never get out. But I can tell you now that I never knew that there was even someone that I could call that would be able to respond or help me. I never knew that. And most of these girls
Hmm.
don't know that there are people on the outside that want to help, that are willing to help, that will move heaven and earth to rescue you. They don't know. And there are such people, they exist.
Yes. Yes, there are. Yeah, I've heard stories from others that I've interviewed that, they've been in so long that, once they got out, they didn't know what to do. That was their entire life. And
Yeah.
they had no concept of doing anything else. So some of them actually went back
Yeah, no, a
to
lot go back.
prostitution.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they begin to do it
And
for
because
themselves.
that's all, yeah, because that's all they know how to do is
Yeah.
to sell their body to make money and to survive. So tell us a little bit about your mission now, your podcast and how you're out there helping people.
So there's several like arenas. Well, we can maybe get to the podcast last. Okay, so when I was in the safe house, I had learned new skills, and I can't tell you how difficult it is to go from, like, just in your mind, to go from I'm hardly working at all. I'm having sex with someone and they're paying me 500 Rand for half an hour or 700 Rand for an hour, to now I must learn an actual skill. And for the same hour's work, I might get 20 Rand. You know what I mean? And that's if I can
Right.
produce at the skill level that can be paid for, because you're still learning. So you don't, so a lot of girls don't even want to start. They don't even want to try because they're like, this is, but I was so desperate to see my life change because my life was already crap. Like, it was already terrible. This was just like, this trafficking thing that happened to me was like the cherry on the cake. I mean, I was working in a media house, but that was like an opportunity that was like a really unexpected opportunity, and it didn't even pay much. And, so I was just vulnerable and kept vulnerable all the time. And so now I had this opportunity. This American woman, she would come to the safe house twice a week and spend 2 hours with us. And she wasn't really great at sewing, but the opportunity was sewing. So she's like, here's a basket. Here's kind of how you do it. I don't really know how, but learn from one of your colleagues who didn't really want to teach. And we were making hair scrunchies, and I was like, no, 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 I don't want to learn. And I started with the hand stitching, and then I was like, no, this is taking forever. And then I got on the machine, I broke a needle, and I was just like, no, no, this isn't for me. I'm not going to do this. And like 5 months later, one of the girls were starting to make a little bit of money with it, like not a lot, but some money enough to buy herself chocolates and buy chocolates for me. And, she wouldn't just buy me a chocolate, she would buy me the really big slab. And instead of being grateful, I was a bit offended. Like, you know, I should be buying my own chocolates. You know what I mean? She was an amazing friend, but I was like, if she can do this, I can do this. So I started learning really, and I began to pick it up over time. And when I left by the time I left the safe house, there was there was a housing program made available to me. I was the very first person to be offered this housing program of the survivors. And my daughter and I, we lived in this apartment for about a year and a half. And while I was there, I was growing my sewing skill. My daughter's checking up on me. I was growing my sewing skills. And really, I wasn't making a lot, less than 1,000 rand in the first couple of months. And I mean, 1,000 rand's not like you can't even buy food for the whole month with that amount of money. You can't. It's not like dollars. It's like the rands are just it's different. Okay. And yeah, but over time, because I knew that God was providing for me supernaturally with the apartments and the groceries and everything was being provided for a time. And I utilized that time to get my skill to the point where after a year and a half, I could cover rent. I couldn't really cover rent and be careful there. I couldn't cover rent and groceries and everything. I could only cover rent. So it was very difficult. I had a baby on my hip and I had to hustle. I had to do everything that I could. I used to sell anything. I would go to the shelters and I would buy secondhand clothes and then I would go sell the secondhand clothes. And everywhere I went, I had a baby bag, a baby, and a suitcase full of clothes to sell secondhand clothes. And I would go from this. So I made sure I had a sewing machine at home, Becky. I made sure I had a sewing machine at home. My daughter's being so cute, yeah. Okay, just come say hello quickly. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, she won't be
How
able to hear you. She won't be able to hear you because I've got my ear things in. Okay. Becky, go out, baby girl, please. Go out. 5 more minutes. I'm almost done here. Okay. She wants my attention on. But yeah. Yes. So what was I saying? Anyway, okay. So now through learning how to sew, I realized that I could make enough money over time. I was making enough money to eventually pay my rent, pay school fees for Becky, buy my own groceries, and it took about 4 years. I needed assistance, financial assistance, and housing assistance post safe house for 2 years. And then when I was on my own, it's not like we were fine. We were scraping by for a whole year. And I really wasn't earning as much as what I really felt that I needed. We were beginning to do better, but it wasn't great. And I prayed a lot, and God was leading me everywhere. Whenever I said, God, I need to increase my income. I need to double my income. And then this opportunity came where I began to do some editing skills I never had before. It was just someone who'd heard my story, who needed a bit of assistance. I had some admin skills. I said, let me do some admin for you. And through that, eventually he saw the potential to teach me how to do some editing. He equipped me with a really great laptop. So I began to work for him. And a couple of months in, he said, okay, you need to start your own thing. And I was like, sure, in like 3 years, I'll start my own podcast, whatever. He said, no, 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 just start something now. Get the practice in. So I was like, okay. And then I just started the podcast and I was working for him full time and doing my podcast on the side. And as we stand now, I think I went full time into my own podcast. Like we're like 3 weeks in now that I'm full time for my own podcast. I'm not working for him anymore. And
that's good.
basically, thank you. And I'm making money. And it's a miracle really because I still feel I have a little bit of like an imposter syndrome and like am I really a YouTuber? I feel like I'm swimming in the deep end. It's fun and it's exciting, and at the same time, I really don't feel like I have the skill level. But the more I do it, the better I'll get at it. I believe that. And in the meantime, now that I've just relocated, so I'm no longer where I was before with the same organizations. But by the time I left my boss lady, okay, so boss lady, it was me and her and a bucket of fabric. But by the time I left her, we had gone from one office to a bigger office and 10 employees. Like she had 10 people, there were 10 people under me. I was the manager, production manager there. So we really grew together. And every time I was ready to grow with my skill level, she was ready to grow with me. So we did this, we grew together basically, and it became a thing. So now here where I am staying currently, I plan to begin doing what she did for me and volunteering at a safe house. It's not that close to me, but it's
Mhm.
closer, and I would be able to make it happen. Maybe not as often as what she was doing, but I do have a plan to go in to teach and to actually have them make products for me that I can buy from them, so that they'll also be earning money at the same time, and not just not just learning, but actually have an opportunity to earn money and put it into practice. So this is my plan. And I have started a nonprofit organization, but we haven't actually kicked it off yet. But now that I've relocated, I will kick it off here. Maybe in 1 year is my hope, which will also be a second stage house. So the way A21 provided that apartment for me with the food and everything that I needed while I was gaining skills, there's a serious lack of that. When the girls leave the safe house, they're now again in a situation where they have nowhere to go and no further support. So I want to be that further support. I want to provide a further support structure, like a type of a halfway house, a place where you can still. This is the part where most of the girls fall off the bus. They end up going back to drugs or back to prostitution or back to, and it's because of a lack of. There's so many. That's it's a huge conversation actually. So I don't want to go into it too much, but this is a breaking point for many, many, many of the girls. In fact, I'm one of the success stories. They always say I'm a success story, but like I haven't been in the program for more than 2 years already. There should really be more success stories. They're still looking at me as the success story. And I know that I am the success story only because what happened to me is nowhere near as bad as what most of these girls have had to endure. Some of these girls get trafficked from the age of 15 and only get rescued at 40 or 37. Their whole lives, they need to learn how to be human from scratch. And so this is my thing. I believe that God allowed me to go through all the things that I went through so that I can now be a voice that speaks for these girls. These girls cannot speak.
Mhm.
They cannot. Most survivors do not want to share their story. It's traumatic. It re-traumatizes when you are retelling the story. For me, the moment I was out of the house, I said to myself, the moment I escaped Clive, that guy, the guy that was helping me, the moment I was saying
Yeah.
to myself, I will not be quiet. They say, and they do say this, that snitches get stitches, but I'm feeling a little bit resilient. That's what I said to myself. And that was my mantra. And I said, I'm not going to be quiet because that's what they want. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to point at everyone and everything because somebody has to do it. And now they're trying to legalize prostitution in our country. My colleague and I have an organization. So it's her organization that she started, but together we are Survivor Exit Foundation, and we are the only organization out of 18 that are saying you cannot legalize prostitution in our country. 15 organizations, people from all walks of life, major organizations that have funding and research and all this stuff that have, to go into this courtroom, it's not a cheap thing. God has provided for us attorneys and advocates who will represent us, but all these other organizations, they are paying millions of rands to be in this court, but God is providing for us. And all of them are demanding that we decriminalize. They say they want to give it a nice word. Legalizing sex work. It is not work. Sex work. They even alter the language so that it can sound acceptable to people. Everyone wants to do it. They have no idea the can of worms they will open for our country if they do go that way. There are three organizations that that are punting for the Nordic model, which is an equality model, which says you criminalize the buying and not the selling. We do also support that, but we don't want that either. We want it to be illegal, and we want law enforcement to do what they're supposed to do and not join in on the criminal activities.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem all over the world. Prostitution is not just in South Africa or United States; it's all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's like I say, it's the oldest profession out there, and
Yep.
the demand for trafficking is outpacing the demand for drugs as far as you know running running the prostitution or running drugs, because you can make more off of prostitution than you can off the drugs. Because I've talked on my podcast, I mentioned that you can only sell an ounce of cocaine for X number of dollars, but if you have a group of prostitutes or that you can sell them over and over and over again and make a lot more money.
Yeah.
And
It's true.
that's going to be that's a hard battle that you're fighting, because
Yeah.
you're fighting greed, and
It's not only
they're going
greed,
to be.
it's also lust. We are fighting lust
Yeah.
as well,
Yes. Yes.
because the porn feeds the industry as well.
Mhm.
Pornography feeds, people watch porn and then they have to act because now they've stirred up their desires so much they have to act. People out there have so much porn addiction, and even those people that are in those videos and they are being trafficked, which is kind of
Mhm.
what stirs the desire even more. It's so perverted. But the thing is, even even for, like, this is the area that I specifically want to target and tackle, because a lot of people don't realize. They think, "Oh, independent woman working for herself is a prostitute." They look at the adverts online. I was forced to advertise myself. The
Mhm.
pimp is not in the photo with me. How do you know I'm working for myself? When you come over to my
Right.
house, right, they're hiding in the room next door. They are quiet. They're pretending that they're not there. But I can tell you that they are clients that have divulged to me, like, you take a chance and you try to see, can this client help me escape? You take chances. You try to see, why can't you just, like, be honest with someone, and they can, they want the service where there is a pimp hiding in the room next door. They want that service because they don't want this getting back to their wives, getting back to their children, getting back to their
Right.
families. They want this protected kind of service. Do you know the
Mhm.
only time that my phone didn't ring was school holiday? All of our phones went quiet for 3 weeks during school holiday
Why is that?
because all the kids are at home and they can see their daddies and mommy. There's extra eyes. If it's just
Mhm.
the wife and the husband doing whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yes, sometimes you get a client, maybe one or whatever, but normally where you see 4 to 6 clients a day, normally now you're getting maybe one client if you're lucky, maybe not even a client for the whole day. School holiday. The children are at home.
Mhm.
Seriously? It's family men, your normal family men that are driving up the demand. Your bastards, don't tell me they don't buy. I'm telling you, do you know what the client looks like? Because this is the part that, like, maybe people don't understand. Maybe you have an idea. What does a sex buyer look like? I'll tell you, it looks like a man, young man, old man, religious man, studied man, colored man, yellow man, white man, educated man, non-educated man, layman. It looks like a man.
Mhm.
That is
Exactly.
your clients. Religious, even people will come in their religious garb. Policeman, captain, man, just men,
Wow.
students, celebrities, people imagine. I saw every kind of man.
Wow.
That is the profile. The profile is man.
Sad to say, and I'm part of that gender,
Yeah.
and it's a shame.
There was only in my 6 months there, I only once saw a female client who wasn't for me, it was for Karen.
Mhm.
And with all of us, 4 girls, females are not the cause of this thing. Men are the cause of this thing. Men buy, men sell, and they try to get women into it as well. I've heard of women helping to recruit and helping, like, it's a thing that, yes, it is something that
Yeah.
happens. But 99%
Mhm.
of what's happening in the sex industry, it's men.
Unfortunately.
You know, the real way to beat this thing is for men to, be honest about their addictions, about their problems, to become faithful. Be faithful to your wife. Stop going to see
Hmm.
prostitutes. Be faithful to your girlfriend, to your fiance.
Exactly. I
Don't hire a
agree.
prostitute if you
I
don't
agree.
have a girlfriend. Go get a girlfriend. Be a normal person.
That's going to be hard for a lot of people, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer, and I think it's going to take people like you to keep fighting and keep up the good battle, and eventually, hopefully, we'll win. But it's going to be
Yeah.
a hard fight, and like I said before, we got to bring light to the darkness, and
Yeah.
I think that may help is to these people who are coming in and paying for sex, they need to be outed.
So this is the least unspoken part about the whole thing. Nobody wants to talk about the buyer. Nobody's talking about the buyers. The buyers are the reason that this industry can thrive. If there's no
Hmm.
demand, there's no reason to sell. The
Yeah,
demand is
supply
too
and demand,
high.
exactly. Supply and demand,
Exactly. People are looking so much at the supply that they don't see that the problem is the demand. If there was
and
no
that's
demand, there would be no need for supply. If people didn't demand children, there would be no reason to supply a child because this is a
exactly.
huge arena. I mean, until the I mean, I've been through my paces. I've been around the block. I've seen a lot of stuff. But when the Epstein's files were released, I cried. I wailed with the crowd because I didn't know. You know, like I can imagine that children that get kidnapped, like all this, the worst kind of essay assaults happening. But I never imagined that the reason why these children don't get found is because they're the meal plan. You know, it's just it's just beyond me. I'm beginning to understand a lot of things, but like what are they doing with the child? I always used to ask, why don't these children resurface? Why don't they reappear? Why don't you hear about them later? Like every year and there you hear about one. "Oh, yes, I escaped 17 years later." Like I've heard one or two of those like miracle stories,
Hmm.
but a lot of these children,
Right.
they go missing. They just never get found. There's nothing to find by the time these are done with them. You know
Yeah, I think some of 'em end up in organ harvesting.
that as well. Yeah. Yes, that is also a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a sad fact why, they're never found because they're gone.
They're gone, exactly. But they become food, they become organ stock, they become and you know what? We really have to there was not enough outrage with the Epstein files drop. There is not enough outrage about what is taking place. We're all angry in the comfort of our home. Ugh, it's so bad.
Mhm,
Ugh, let's scroll on TikTok. You, is that your answer? We need to be stirred to the point of action. Do something. If you see something, say something. Report it. If you see something, report what you've seen. Educate yourself about who is fighting trafficking in your area. Know who to call. Know who to contact. Know who is going to be the person that's going to resolve whatever situation if you see something. Because, there was this one story a testimony that I heard of a woman that got rescued out of trafficking like at the age of 30 or something, but she was in it her whole life. Her own family trafficked her. And there's a lot of that happening where people's own family, like, but anyway, do you know she eventually escaped because someone called and reported it. And so authorities came in and investigated. Initiate an investigation if you suspect something. You can make anonymous tip-offs. You don't even have to involve yourself. I saw this there and it felt a bit strange. Can you send someone? It's not that difficult. But a lot of people go, "Oh, that's weird," and then they go on with their lives. You can save a
mhm,
life by saying what you see. Be observant, especially if you're traveling. Look out at the airport. If you see an old white guy with three young African girls, this is not normal. This is trafficking, probably. It doesn't always look like that. It might be, but there's usually like an age gap, a culture gap. Those gaps are clues.
exactly. Like you said, a lot of people don't wanna get involved.
You
for
don't even have
whatever
to get
reason.
involved. Just make a phone call. It's not that hard. You could save somebody's life. And especially if you report something you see at an airport, airports take these things pretty seriously. They'll all they have to do is go take those people, put them in a room, ask them some questions, and then that is an opportunity if there's something that a victim can speak up and say, listen, I'm a victim in this situation.
Exactly. Exactly. And, a lot of, going back to the Epstein cases, a lot of it is being kept down because of the power that was at the island. The perpetrators, famous, powerful people, and they don't want the information out. They want their crimes to be gone unnoticed.
Yeah, yeah. But we all have a role to play and we all need to do something. You know, if you pray. That's one thing everyone can do is pray. I know for a fact that there were people praying for me in that situation because I didn't draw myself to God. You know what I mean? Where did that idea even come from? You know, people were praying for me that I don't know. And when I was in the safe house, I know that the people that were running the safe house, they used to meet weekly and pray for victims. So people that were like on the board of the safe house and those that started it together with like they were a small group. They used to pray every week, have prayer meetings that can strengthen survivors because this is a spiritual fight as well. It's physical, but it's
Hmm.
also spiritual. Cannot
Exactly.
actually separate the spiritual aspect. And my story is from the very beginning to the very end of it. The spiritual aspect is evident. People say I talk about God too much. You can't separate God from my story.
Real quickly, tell us about your podcast and how people can view it.
Yeah. So you can go to YouTube. It's called God's Truth Podcast. And I interview people who have had supernatural experiences. And I'm interested in hearing these stories because I've had them myself. And, there's not enough exposure, I believe, to the supernatural, although it's becoming more evident now. There's more exposure now than what there was before. So I would encourage anyone to go and listen. But I always say, testimonies are not Bible. We don't take testimony for Bible. We take testimony for testimony. And so eat the meat, leave the bone. Don't don't discredit a testimony because it doesn't match up with your theology. Ultimately, we need to celebrate that Jesus won another one. It's another person who now devotes their life to the Lord because of what their encounter was with the Lord. However that looks in their life, and we celebrate the victory for the body. So some people, they always want to discredit some of the testimonies because it doesn't sound, you know, I love the Bible, and the Bible does back up every single experience I've had, but it's not always obvious. And I've had many experiences that I couldn't explain. I didn't know how to put words to it. And I most certainly didn't know how to understand what the experience was. Like I knew what happened, but I didn't have a foundation in the Bible to understand, what happened. And sometimes the more I hear testimonies, the more I gain understanding of what I went through. Some things I don't yet have a full understanding of. I've had three major encounters with God. The one is the one that I already told you about when the cloud came in. I didn't even know that there is biblical reference for that experience. And there is a biblical reference for that experience. And so sometimes we go through these things because we don't read our Bibles from start to finish. So we don't know that it's there. Near death experiences. People just they say near death experiences are not real. No one's in hell. Well, I'll tell you that Jonah had a near death experience. And in his experience, when he was swallowed by the whale or the fish, he actually died and he went to the gates of hell and he writes about it. I mean, the book is not even, it's only a couple chapters long. Like, so anyone can just go read it and you'll see that even in the Bible, there were near death experiences. And he speaks about having been at the gates of hell. So if hell wasn't a place, what's he talking about?
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being on my show, and you've shared a lot of important information, and I
A
appreciate
restaurant.
everything you've
It's you.
done and are
Mommy,
doing,
look,
and
it's
what you're
you.
doing in
It's
the
a
future.
restaurant. Thank you so much. So my daughter, she drew this picture while we were doing this.
Well,
Yeah.
beautiful, very nice.
Very nice. She says it's me at a restaurant. I love it. I love the chandelier,
Okay,
baby girl.
She's very talented.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for having
I
me on,
think
and God bless you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Well, that's it for our show for today. Hope you learned something that will perhaps protect you and a family member. Follow me on Facebook. Go to my website, davidjstory.com, to learn more about the Omega book series, my podcast, and my blogs. And always remember, always watch your six and others too.